Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to my embroidery kitchen table. I am so excited to be back with another embroidery tutorial. It has been a little bit since I filmed my last tutorial, but I'm here, I'm ready. I've got my popcorn, I've got my matcha. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you know that popcorn and matcha are my everyday snack. So I am prepared to sit down for the long haul and film this tutorial. A lot of y'all have been requesting a tutorial on how to embroider lettering, how to embroider words, and I wanted to break it down for y'all step by step, make it a very easy and approachable process so you guys know how to embroider words and then also kind of know how to do calligraphy. So this is like a two-part kind of video, but basically I'm going to be showing you guys how to draw out the lettering and then how to embroider it. If you guys are new here on my channel, I'm Chloe. I'm super excited to have you here for today's video. I do a ton of embroidery tutorials and other crafty things here. I also do thrifting, fashion, beauty, you name it. So I'm super happy that you're here today and I would love for you to hit that subscribe button. But if you are just getting into embroidery, I have an entire playlist on how to get started, what supplies you need, traceable templates, and all of that stuff linked down below. So be sure to check out my embroidery playlist, which has a ton of tutorials, as well as my blog page, which has all the templates and the supplies list. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's @bychloewynn. I post a ton of embroidery content on there as well. But let's go ahead and get into the tutorial. So before we get into the embroidering, I want to show you guys how to decipher when a letter will be thick and when it will be thin. So as you guys can see in this embroidery example that I did a while back, there are parts of the letters that have a little bit more weight, and then there are some parts of the letters that are relatively thin, and we want to mirror that in our embroidery. But first we need to understand what parts of letters are thick and what parts are thin. And to show you guys how the lettering works, I'm going to be using my iPad just to demonstrate what parts of letters will be thick and what parts will be thin. We're going to start with just the alphabet. And typically in the alphabet, whenever you're doing a downstroke, your letters are going to be thicker. And this is demonstrated in calligraphy when using some sort of ink pen. Whenever you're doing a downstroke, more ink comes out of the pen, which makes the line thicker. And then when you're doing an upstroke, it gets thinner. So you guys can see it by this example. The downstrokes are thicker and then the upstrokes are thinner. Then we'll do an upstroke, then a downstroke, then an upstroke, and a downstroke for B. Downstroke and upstroke for C, downstroke, upstroke, downstroke for D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, V, W, X, Y, Z. So as you guys can see, every time you go down, it's going to be a thicker line, and then whenever we're coming back up, it's thinner. And this is what we're going to want to mirror in our embroidery. So for this embroidery tutorial, we are going to embroider the word hey. So we'll do H, E, Y. And whenever we trace this onto our fabric though, it's gonna be just in pencil. So you're not gonna see these super thick lines, but I like to have an image of this so that when I do embroider, I know where to double back with my thread to make it thicker. So now with our embroidery fabric, we are gonna write out the word. Typically, if you have one of my patterns, you will put the pattern behind the fabric, put it up against the window, and you can trace it from there. But because we're not really doing a pattern, I've just got the fabric out. But basically, I'm just gonna write in hey. Now, as you can see, we don't have any down or upstrokes. It literally is just the thin pencil markings. So this is where you can either draw in kind of where it's gonna be thicker, But we're gonna just kind of shade in those downstrokes of where our letters will be thicker. Another idea would be typing it out on like a Word document and printing out your lettering and then doing the tracing method with the window. We've got hay, so we're gonna put it into our hoop. And this method applies to any word. I just picked a very brief word so that you guys weren't watching me embroider a 15-letter word. So this is our lettering on our fabric. I used this pencil. This is what I like to use for my embroideries, and I'll link these down below with my other supplies. This is what we've got so far. Now we are going to pick out our thread color. For the purposes of this video, we're gonna use this incredible teal color. I don't use this very much, so we're gonna use it on this word. And whenever I am embroidering words, I do not split the thread. And if you don't know what that means, be sure to check out my embroidery 101 video, because that is where you will get all of the basics of what you need to know on how to even start embroidering. So for lettering, I don't split the thread because I like them to be more bold. They're easier to read. But if you want some more delicate wording, you can obviously split the thread and make it as thin as you want. If you need to know how to thread your needle, again, check out my embroidery 101 video, because that will walk you through everything, or my embroidery Q&A video. So I always like to start my embroidery pieces from the bottom left of whatever design I'm working on. So we are gonna start right here on the hay. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna do our forward stitch and then our back stitch. And because we knotted it at the end, we don't need to do the back and forth movement. If you remember that from the embroidery 101 video, we're just gonna do forward stitch and back stitch. This is what I call a straight stitch. There are probably other better, more technical terms out there, but this is just what I call it. So anytime I refer to a straight stitch, this is what I mean. Forward, moving up on the design, and then going backwards to connect the line. Moving forward on the design. And this is where we see these two parts intersecting, but we're gonna follow this thin line all the way up and then go down. So it's almost like we're writing out the word, but with thread. Forward, moving up on the design, and going backwards to connect the line. Here, and move forward on the design, move up the design, and stitch backwards. As you approach curves in the lettering, like this right here where it curves, you're gonna wanna do smaller stitches, but when you're working on these like lines, you can do larger stitches. But the smaller the stitch, the more fluid your word will look, so just keep that in mind. If you do big stitches all the way around, it's gonna look very choppy. And I had a lot of y'all DMing me asking me how I make the words look so fluid. And we're just gonna continue this straight stitch all the way around, making smaller stitches as we get closer to this curve up here. As you can see, for this thicker section, we're just gonna do this single kind of straight stitch all throughout the wording and then go back and thicken up the parts that need to be. See how I'm doing smaller stitches as I get to this curve, just to make it more fluid and rounded. And then as we approach this straight line, I'm gonna do a big stitch like this, and then connect moving backwards, and then smaller stitches as we do this curve. together with our first kind of pass of threading. So after you've got the first line of lettering done, we're gonna double back on these areas that are supposed to be thicker, but we're gonna go back up here to the top. And I usually just double in thickness. You can triple, you can make it as thick as you want. I typically just kind of double it up because it feels very like naturally weighted, I guess. So as you can see, it's getting thicker. And depending on how bold you want it, like I said, you can triple it or quadruple it or make it as chunky as you'd like. But this just makes it look a little bit more like calligraphy, and I love kind of thickening the lines because it gives it just a little bit more of a boldness to the lettering. Now I'm gonna add a thicker line right here. This is where the other downstroke would go. And I'm just doing straight stitches and just doubling up where we had previously drawn that thicker line. Then I'm gonna end my thread by flipping it over and knotting it. Now we're gonna add the thicker part of the E. In the thread. Now we're gonna make the H thicker. And then the last part is this part of the H. And there you have it. So that is how I like to embroider words, and I love just having this like thick line. Just makes it feel a little bit more polished than it all being just one strand of thread. So that's how I embroider words, and I really hope that this tutorial was helpful. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a big thumbs up. Leave me a comment down below letting me know what embroidery project you're working on right now. If you want to check out my other tutorials, I have a playlist linked down below, as well as a blog post with supplies and traceable embroidery templates that you can download and use for yourself. But if you're new to my channel and you want to stick around, hit that subscribe button. I would love to have you back for some more embroidery tutorials, and I will see you all in my next video very, very soon. Bye guys!